All right, it's go time. Hey, Gene, are you there? All
I'm
right.
here.
All right. Awesome. Welcome everybody to the big reveal, the core algorithm and the book that it holds or that holds it. And special guest today. So what we'd like to do, Gene, we'd like to throw into the chat people to say hello and where are they from today. Hey, everybody. Hello. I am in Kelowna, British Columbia. Wow, Myra. Ooh, hey Myra. Good to see everybody. Melissa from Sudbury, Thompson, Manitoba, Winnipeg. So Manitoba is representing. Oh, here comes London, Ontario, Sudbury, Manitoulin. Wow, look at that. Got some people from the US joining us. Welcome everybody. So great to have you here. We didn't advertise this, but we have my one of my best friends and esteemed colleagues here, Dr. Jean Clinton, and she's here to have a conversation with me, talk about the book, have some fun. We're here for an hour today. Stay as long as you can. This is being recorded, and this is different from our Brivia webinars usually. We had over 235 people register for today's session, so I'm super excited. I want to introduce, welcome everybody. And as we do, Jeff Dax here, Daniel Crane. Wow, awesome from Chicago. By the way, sending love from Canada to all the folks in the US. We see that there's some terrible things going on, and we just hope that you're safe and that you're doing what you can to get to better. So here we go. Gene, I want to, no one knew you were going to be here. We didn't advertise it. And I don't know if you folks, some of you folks know who she is. She is a juggernaut in the children and adolescent area, child psychiatrist, neuroscience geek. Jean, I want you to introduce yourself. Tell us a little bit about yourself, and then tell us what you're excited about today.
Well, hi. Well, starting with what I'm excited about, well, my bestest friend, Stephen de Groot, his major opus is coming alive today, and I'm so honored to be part of it. So it's an unlikely partnership that we have here because I'm a infant and child psychiatrist. And Steve and I have known each other. Well, Steve remembers dates better than I do, about 2011. And I have followed and loved and used Steve's work from even before I met him, because I went in and saw him at a conference and he was talking about strength-based, relationship-focused intervention and therapy. And I said, hey, this is my language. Who is this guy? So I am so excited that as I've watched Stephen's thinking brilliance come to fruition and formation, that he's here to share it with the world, to really help people on their journey to better. So,
Oh.
like, who wouldn't say yes to being part of this?
All right. Well, I see Lena Aguilmari here.
Oh, hi, Alina.
Yeah. We got lots of people here, and I want to say we got John Scarfo, the former director of the
Yes.
secure facilities in Ontario. So people hear me talking about working in jails and the Youth Lawrence. All these great people. So they're here, and everything I've talked about is real. And today we're talking about showing the whole algorithm in terms of all of the dimensions. Now, some of you know parts of it. There's lots of people on here that have taken core communication, and it's been a great program, and it's had this algorithm in it. That's what made it so great. Other people have already heard about some of the different pieces through our training at Brivia. And so today I want to see questions and comments in the chat. This is just the beginning. I want to make sure we have over 100 people here already, and it's climbing. Today is really just the beginning of introducing this algorithm. I see Andrew Rogers from the UK. Dude, I cannot wait to integrate the Core 4 into sports and all this other great mental health stuff. So today is really about what is the book about? Going to have a conversation with Jean about what's behind the book, and she has some questions for me. And then we're going to get into what's actually in the book in detail. And as always, make comments. I know that there are people in the chat that have had the advantage of having a first glance at the book. And as a matter of fact, I can't even hold it up because our first big box is caught in a snowstorm in the US. So some of you maybe receive yours before me. So then we're going to get into questions and comments. And ask the questions. There's a question and comment button at the top. There is, you can make your comments in the actual chat. We love to see that when people talk back and forth. Some people in the chat have actually read the book. So if they want to start throwing in their comments, just so we can have multiple ways of interacting. So Gene, you know, what the stuck, right? That's one of my favorite things to say because the getting to better model, the core algorithm, and most of you who've worked with me before, we love getting people unstuck. We love providing simple solutions to getting parents, teachers, leaders, and companies unstuck. And so, Gene, you've been along for the ride. You've seen the algorithm. You've been on the core council. What questions do you have for me that you think we should talk about with these folks here before we get into the actual book? Oh, you're on mute,
I'm
Gene.
muted. Yep, sorry. I wanted to, do you know this is my first Zoom call ever, eh? Um,
Yeah.
yeah. So one of the first questions, Steve, is what led you to write this book other than all of your fans saying this needs to get written? So, but tell me, what's your motivation
Oh,
to have done
it's
this?
pretty simple. I think since I was 6 years old, I had a hard time with why people were sad, like why they were unhappy in places that they should be happy, like at school or in their homes or even in the basement of a church or a place of worship. And I've always been confused by that. And I think my whole life I've been involved with people. I coached, I played sports, I volunteered in the community, and I've always been perpetually, I guess, disappointed in what's possible. And then when I moved into like helping people, formally helping people in children's mental health and in child welfare, I really felt like the models that we were using could have been better. That they were, that the things that we were using weren't working as well as we'd hoped for. And as I became an adjunct professor and started to test out a lot of the theories, a lot of them didn't do what they promised. A lot of them kind of fell short. And here's the big thing: we never blame the model. We never blame the model. We never blame the self-help book. We never blame the psychiatrist. No offense, Gene. We never blame the therapist. Everyone in this room here, I know for sure, has asked what's wrong with me, right? And it's the worst question at the wrong time. And so, a lot of
Yeah.
people, and here's the big one. The biggest reason why I wrote this book at this point in time is if you look around, we know more about human behavior than any other time in our history, yet by all measures, we're doing worse. Kids are more anxious than ever. They're more lonely. Parents are more lonely. Leaders are
Yeah.
more helpful. People are burning out and conflict is high. So those are some of the main reasons. And my core counsel, which you're on, said, you need to write this freaking book.
You do. You do. You need to get it. It's so true, Steve. As a child psychiatrist for so many years, we've been on this pathology hunting model. I mean, that's how we were
Yeah,
trained. And one of the things I love about the book and about our work together is this focus on the possible
yeah,
rather than
yeah,
on what's stuck,
yeah,
looking
yeah,
at what can we find and know within ourselves.
yeah,
Not like it's not self-help, and I want you to tell me why it's different than other self-help. But in truly knowing self, but yet there's a direction that you share with us.
yeah,
That's
yeah,
very different than others. So tell me,
yeah,
yes, Mr. de Groot,
yeah,
can you
yeah.
please tell me why
Self-help.
this is not just another one of those books on my side table?
Well, you don't meet a lot of people who just have one self-help book, right? You mean, and I think this is in the self-help category possibly, but this isn't self-help. It's help. And the thing about self-help, if most people have done it, and there's some great self-help books out there. I don't want to start a flame war with the self-help industry. I just think they're often like focused on you, like you fix this part of yourself. There's this thing that's wrong with you, and let's get to work and change it, right? And what I'm trying to do in this book is create an optimistic and empowering view that we aren't individuals. Like, as a matter of fact, our resilience, as we're going to talk about today, is the result of other things that are not ourself, right? Our strength is not ourself. And I think there's an there's an insidiousness, something wrong with you. You need to be fixed in the self-help industry. And I think there's also this, like, go away, fix yourself, or go to your therapist, and then come back when you're better. right?
Yeah,
And,
yeah.
and so I tried to take an approach in this book where it goes against that, right? And I think, and I'd love to see in the chat, keep making questions and making comments. You guys can comment on this stuff. My friend Brian, who's out of the US, read it and he said, it was a bit strange at first because I didn't find it like focusing on what I wasn't good at. It was optimistic and empowering. And I hear people say, like, throughout the whole book, I keep really getting affirmed what I'm good at and what I do well and how I can get to better. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. Well, and again, the way we were trained, Steve, was
Yeah.
to ask all of these questions and then kind of slip in, oh yeah, what are you good at? But
Yeah.
really, and
Yeah.
that's what I love about it, the optimism of like think about your needs, think about your values, think about your
Oh,
goals and your strengths. Like, are you kidding me? Do you know how
yeah.
old I am? And I have
Yeah.
not stopped that. Well, here's
Yeah.
here's true confessions here. But
Yeah.
it's
Yeah.
kind of a wake-up call to my possibility,
Yeah.
but not just me alone. Not just
Yeah.
me,
Yeah.
not just me alone. It's all
Yeah.
about connection as well.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
and I think thanks, Gene. And you just mentioned the core four, and some of the people have heard of it. Here, this is wild. Last week, my our great colleague Brenda, sister from another Mister, we spent time with some of the most highest performers in health, physicians, surgeons, nurses, managers, maintenance, everything, all at the top of their class. And we talked about how many of us don't even know what our core four are. And I'm going to get into that. Like many of us have been in environments where we haven't really stopped to think about what do I really need and not BS ourselves, right? Like not say insert whatever my mom wants or insert whatever everybody else thinks I want. And what do I truly value? And this has been astounding to us because of the power of these core four, which we'll get into in just a moment and why they're so important. Yeah.
So
Any
you've
other
made a
questions, Dean?
promise.
Yeah, 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 I did.
How
Oh,
about
yeah.
this promise? How about this
Yeah. Well,
promise? Why don't we just hear about
yeah.
Steve's promise? It's so
Yeah. Well,
big
yeah.
and
And
so doable.
yeah, I have a promise. And I
Yeah.
want people to hold, I want everybody in this on this call to hold me to it. And I feel blessed that everyone's here. I see Dr. Nithya here has put something in the chat. I think it's really important. She's shouting out, and that's the folks shouting something other than my mother, right? Who's my second biggest fan. So yeah, my promise to everybody here is to validate and affirm the things that you're doing well, because you don't hear that enough. And the second part of my promise is to support you to change something in a positive way about how you think, about how you feel, and about how you do things. And this book was written for that. This book was and so far so good. We're hearing that people are feeling validated and affirmed. They're feeling that, they can be challenged to think differently, even about things that we talk about all the time, like trust and motivation, and even dare I say resilience. I took a shot at that, was a bit nervous, and talked to our friend Dr. Michael Unger for his blessing. Right. But yeah, so that's my promise. My promise is that this book will help you get to better, and it will help you possibly even get beyond what you think better is for the people that you lead and the people that you love, more importantly. Yeah.
Are you saying that I don't need to dig into my past and pull out all of my this and my that, or that's not the approach here? That might be useful
Yeah.
for some in some instances. I'm
Yeah.
not going to diss my profession
Yeah.
completely, but
Yeah. Yeah.
there's another road. There's another
Yeah.
way of
Yeah.
getting to
Yeah.
better.
Yeah,
I
there
love
is.
it.
We talk about regulation, and sometimes going into the deep anal, like the past, into those relationships, as we start to dysregulate, we start to not feel very good or think very positively, and that has a negative impact on our ability to cope. It's all these slippery slopes. So we're trying to give these great on ramps. So I don't know. Do you want to talk about the book, Gene? Do you want to share? Do we want to get
Hey,
into what's in the book and start
I
sharing
I
with these folks? What can
I'd
they
love
expect?
to. Can I ask you just
What-
one question, Steve? I'm able
Yeah,
to see your lovely, lovely face
yeah,
and the lovely, lovely slides, but I don't
yeah.
know if there's any, I don't get to see any, I don't know if there's a picture of me coming up when I speak. So sorry about that, if
Yes,
that's the
I
case.
can see you, and I can ask my team in the other part of the condo that I'm
This
in
one,
in
okay.
Kelowna. Can you see Jean Clinton? Oh, I'm not hearing anything yet, so we'll see.
All
I'm
right,
hoping
that's
that
not the
can,
important
can
stuff.
oh
Let's
actually
get to
we'll
the
ask the
important
people.
stuff.
Yes, okay. Yeah, look there, we got the people in the chat. Awesome. Thank you, folks. They can see you. Hey,
Okay,
Darren,
so
good
do
to
I
see
look
you.
okay? Do I look okay?
Yeah,
Only joking.
you
Only
look
joking.
fat. Has anybody ever seen a psychiatrist fish for compliments like in this very indirect way, right? All right, awesome. You look fabulous. Oh, way to go, Gene. I love it. Okay, what's this wild thing on the book? And by the way, Chris Pugh's here. He's one of our core council members. He's a quantum physicist and he's our in-house priest. The core algorithm seems complicated at first, but it's not. And I want to share what's in the book. Some of you have heard some of these things. Gene, we're going to go through these, one by one. And this is the first part of the book. It really is the most dense part. It introduces the three great states. It gets into the core four, and I'm going to talk to these right away. And you can ask questions in the chat. The key connectors. Now, I talked to a good doctor friend of mine yesterday. It's like, I've always heard of the three great states in core four. We've been working with those, but then boom, I get these key connectors, and then boom, there's you know, these core essentials, and there's this more and more and more. So I'm excited for people who have had parts to finally get the whole algorithm and to be able to take a part of it for what they need. All right, and I'm loving the chat. So have a look at the chat. So let's start chapter one, folks. It's about the three great states. And Gene, I want you to jump in. Right, the three great states, and you'll see the algorithms start to come together. So you'll see just the outside of the algorithm. To put it clearly, the three great states are the conditions we need in our relationships and our environments to feel safe, significant, and situated so that we can create the conditions to learn, adapt, grow, and get stronger. Now, if our environments are not characterized by that, and what is safe? You've heard of psychological safety, and this goes beyond that, right? This is about trust, comfort, that's safe. Significant is about feeling like you matter, knowing you matter, that you have worth, that you have value, and situated is having some predictability, some direction, and just some purpose. I know where I'm going. I know what's expected of me. Some of you folks have known the three great states, so throw in the chat what your experience has been. Gene, you've actually you've actually used
Oh
these and
yeah.
you talk about these all over the world.
All over the world. And do you know what they are, it's profound. You know, how many parents have said to me as a child psychiatrist, I tell them I love them all the time. But if they don't feel lovable,
Yeah,
that's significant, then it doesn't work. And
yeah,
educators to
yeah,
understand that no learning can happen at all
yeah,
if the kids don't feel safe. All of
yeah,
in all of those ways. So in so many ways, and in couples therapy, it's
yeah,
so huge. So when I
yeah,
think about all of the therapeutic applications of this,
yeah, yeah,
and then I
yeah,
think about my own kids and my own
yeah,
relationship, and
yeah,
man, I
yeah,
say, okay, I want the t-shirt, man. I want the
yeah, yeah, yeah.
t-shirt.
Yeah, and
Yeah,
from all those folks that
awesome.
worked in prisons and institutions and large facilities, I know you're here, and thank you for giving me access. Teachers from schools and even leaders like there's a lot across the country. We travel all the time. People aren't feeling the three great states at work. People are not feeling the three great states on their team. And what happens is it affects their performance. And what chapter one is about, and honestly, everyone here, I want you to know, I tried to make chapter one the price of admission. Like I wanted to make it worth the price of like I wanted chapter one to be enough to buy the book. And I want you to know that in chapter one, you learn not only about the three great states, but you learn why we hold back as humans. You learn what makes us great. You learn about more than 40 different behaviors that I call high potency behaviors that you're already doing, that when you do them, they create energy, focus, commitment, and higher effort. And that's chapter one. You also get an appendix in this one for how to actually do the three great states. It's a step-by-step guide for you to create the three great states at home, at school, on the field, and above all, in the office.
So
So,
Steve, let me just say one
yeah,
thing quickly.
yeah,
Everyone meet Stephen de Groot. I remember one of the first conversations we had, we said about, oh, the parenting and what we can do about this. And Stephen said, well, I have 200 different things that I can share with you that will help parents. And I'm so happy
yeah,
to hear that it's down
yeah,
to 40
yeah,
here.
yeah.
But that
No,
brain of yours to have brought it, contained it into this is astounding. Bringing
it's
the
I,
world
it's
out.
It's actually 1,500 now behaviors, Gene. So, folks, this is what I want for you. Okay, I know this is just releasing the book, and thanks to Jane on in the chat, you can go to gettingtobetter.com if you're interested in learning more about the book. We'll show you where to learn more, where to get it. Also, join the community because, as Gene says, I've created so many things that I haven't even used yet, and I love building stuff, and I love creating things that are simple, practical, and actionable. Yes, the algorithm looks complicated, but I'm going to talk about how you can break it down into small pieces. And for those online who've already used the three great states, throw it up in the chat. I know you're here. I know there are people in this room. So then we move into chapter two, which is this. I don't know. Every day I have a different favorite chapter. This one is our core four, forces of meaning and motivation. And this chapter is all about uncovering this mystery of motivation. Like, what is it, 2005, 25? I got to look at my watch and go, we haven't fixed motivation. Motivation is still the number one thing we're struggling with. So I take a shot at a fresh perspective that our needs, values, goals, and strengths, when they plug into sources in the environment, when a force meets a source, you can actually create higher levels of motivation, engagement, focus, and we call it the pillars for optimal human performance. Some of you have taken my courses, you've been there, you know this, and look at all of the great stuff in the chat. Gene, what are your thoughts on the core four? Because you alluded, this is chapter two, and I'll tell people what's in it after I hear your perspective on the core four, because you've been talking about the core four for years in some
I
of your
abs
talks around the
I
world.
absolutely have. And you know, the again, from the child psychiatry perspective, and the human interactive perspective, I don't know that we get raised well enough, even now, to be thinking about things ourselves and through this kind of lens. What are
Yeah,
my needs? What are my values? You know, you might think about your values like I want to make a difference in the world, but what do I need? And you know, especially when I'm distressed, where
yeah,
is it coming
yeah,
from? And
yeah,
it's so often a disruption that
yeah,
these core four are not being met. And even in
yeah,
arguments,
yeah,
why is my perspective so different than your perspective? And you get into loggerheads until you stop and say, well, what of your needs are not being met right now? Like
yeah,
it's just in
yeah,
terms of human interaction and theory, Steve,
yeah,
you've
yeah.
compiled so many theorists in this book in ways that are sorely needed.
Yeah,
Yep.
thanks, Gene. And yeah, it's one of those things that whether it's your own children or kids in school or on the field or leaders in industry, a lot of things that we've understood is people are not performing well because their needs are not being met. Their values are misaligned or being dishonored with what we say is important in the organization. Our goals aren't being tied to the mission, or even our goals aren't being accomplished. Our strengths, oh, don't even get me started. We don't focus on strengths enough. And I'm not talking a strengths assessment. I'm talking about your beliefs, your values, your goals, your experience, your knowledge, the times you succeeded, the positive, like it's wild. So what we do in this book is we open it wide open, folks. Chapter two is all about how do you motivate yourself? How do you motivate other people? There are good case studies in there from real people that I've worked with who one person went from being like super unmotivated to fully motivated, and someone who's already motivated who didn't understand why he was motivated until we took him through the core four, right? And it's like, wow, that's why I feel so great. The other thing, you get the key performance motivator scale in this book, and you also get a process called fill, which is find, identify, locate the meaning in the motivator, and then how do you leverage it. So that's chapter two, and I'm excited about it. And here's the one though, why not talk about trust? We're talking about safety. We move into motivation. I struggled for a long time. Chapter three is about resilience. Chapter three is about what is this thing really? Is it about bouncing back? Is it about, all the things that we say it is? And I offer a fresh perspective that's accessible, positive around the things that create resilience. And that is our ability to regulate, our access to certain resources, which we have more than we actually think we do, and what is the role in relationships. And this is where parents, teachers, coaches, and leaders and are actually, this is the chapter that says, you are freaking important. Gene, any thoughts on the key connectors and this chapter?
Any
Mhm.
thoughts? Okay, so the brief thoughts. Um, Crucial. Absolutely crucial. There are some who say that issues around regulation are at the heart of much of the distress that people experience. And so connecting our regulation ability with the resources and what are they? Examine relationship. And as
Right.
we get to this chapter and the next chapter, this idea of relationship is at the heart of the matter, is just so crucially linking them all together.
Right, right. And I'm hearing from people that have started reading the book that they're learning that in their relationships, in their marriage, they're not regulating. And it has to do with their relationship, right? And so I'm getting emails from people. So chapter 3, the key connectors, is not just about resilience, it's about perseverance. And what's the difference between the two? It's also about a recipe for how you create your own resilience and how you can strengthen it. It even gives you a step-by-step process. It's called Fill Your Resilience Bucket so that you can identify your own key connectors and start strengthening your resilience. And also, I just want to keep saying, chapter 3 is the biggest chapter in the book. And one of the reasons why it's the biggest chapter in the book is because it builds on the three great states, it weaves in the core four, and basically helps you understand, what you need to do to leverage your relationships, strengthen your resources, and be able to regulate and co-regulate better. That's chapter 3, folks. And here I'm coming to my favorite chapter. I think it's my favorite chapter. It's chapter 4, and it's my surprise chapter. Chapter 4 is about the core essentials. And this is where Gene and I overlap, folks. This is about our brain. This is about, like, this chapter explains that these requirements aren't only essential, they're existential. And what they are is our deep needed requirement to connect right from birth, to get clarity, like to have an understanding of predictability of what's happening next, and to have a sense of control. And I explain what control is that personal sense of agency. Now, what's incredible at the core essentials is that we require them the second we're born, and we require them throughout our lives. And Gene, I wanted to ask you, tell them what's in this chapter, but I want to hear from you. Like, what are your thoughts on the importance of the core essentials?
Wow. Well, this is a chapter that makes me very humble because I'm in this chapter, and the talk of neuroscience that I've done for so long about understanding human hearts and souls and love has been taken with my friend Steve in his own way and brought it in a knowledge translator translated. And the idea that from birth, we are a social species desperately seeking connection. And if we don't have it, we literally develop problems, we'll say.
Right.
And
Yeah.
then when you've got that connection, then the possibilities open up that can lead to you moving forward. And it's not about being controlling. It really is truly about knowing oneself and being in control. So
Yeah.
I'm honored by this chapter
Yeah.
with my friend.
Yeah,
Thank you.
thank you. Thank you, Gene. And one of the things we do, we tie in some of the neuroscience. How come at birth, why is eye contact so important? And this is the thing in the core essentials, we're going through a lot of disruption, folks, right? And what people need through disruption, they need all the time. They need to feel connection, right? They need to feel that hand on the shoulder. We're in it together. You hear people saying this, we're in it together. Well, when you don't believe it, it's disconnection, right? It actually causes a lot of stress. So not having connection causes stress and causes dysregulation. Clarity is the next thing we need in disruption because we don't have predictability and there's all this stuff going on. We need to help our people, our children, our students. What's the next step? What's the routine today? What are we doing between now and lunch? What are we doing? And these two, by providing connection and clarity, we actually give them a sense of control, which gives them that strong sense of agency. This is a game changer. Chapter 4 is a game changer because it also illuminates the idea that when we're born, the reason why eye contact, let me see in the chat, how many people think eye contact is important nowadays? Let me see. Do you think eye contact is important nowadays in today's world, in our independent, competitive world, right? Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. We don't do it as much as we can, right? As a matter of fact, what we're seeing is a lot of people are saying there's a disconnection crisis, right? There's a connection crisis. And here's the thing, when we're born, one of my biggest surprises in chapter 4 is connecting what happens at birth. And it's a perspective where eye contact and human contact not only create conditions for thriving, connection, clarity, and control, but they actually release your prepackaged human awesomeness, right? And this whole idea that is potential, does it have to be unlocked? According to chapter 4, it's unlocked at birth and it's hidden, and it's up to parents, teachers, and leaders to create conditions for that potential to come forward. And there's tons of practical strategies on how to do
Well,
that. Gene?
and yeah,
Yeah.
one of the ones that is so important is to connect before you correct.
Yes.
That I mean,
Yes.
this understanding the core essentials helps you understand. Well, that is such an important concept. Now I
Right.
get it. Yep.
Yeah, yeah. And in this chapter, you also learn a little bit more about why calm is so important and how
Yeah,
we can
lending
lend
your
our
thumb.
lending people our calm. That's one of Gene's wonderful statements that I use all the time. How do you lend them the calm? And yeah, I see Gordon Neufeld in there. Connect before you correct. Absolutely. Some really good stuff. Hi, Jeanette. Good to see you, folks. Now, where do we go from there? How can this get any better, right? Well, what we do is after you go through all the dimensions, chapter 5 is really about tying them all together. But even more than tying them all together, not only do you have a full understanding of the whole algorithm, you understand how the three great states create connection, clarity, and control. You understand that the core four actually emerge from your core essentials. And one of the biggest, my favorite parts of chapter 5 is that if you had any doubt as a parent, as a teacher, as a leader, or as a coach about the significance of your impact on the people you're responsible for, my number one goal in chapter 5 of connecting the pieces was to obliterate that doubt. There is no greater variable that has an impact on children, on athletes, on students, and on employees than their leaders as they line up the algorithm. Gene, I'm going to pause there because I feel like I'm going to burst, and then we're going to get into the next section of the book.
Yeah,
Gene,
yeah,
what are your
yeah.
thoughts
Well,
on this? Yeah,
okay, so Steve, a couple of things. There's this a phrase, you are enough. And that phrase just kind of hangs there until you start understanding what you've outlined in the algorithm. But
yeah,
here's a question, Steve. As I count it, there are 13 different bits that you've talked about in the algorithm. And I
yes,
want to know for someone who doesn't read as much as some of us, where do you start? What can I do? And I know we're going to talk about part two,
yeah,
but
yeah,
where do we go to begin? I know where I started, but
yeah.
what do you think? What do you think?
Where do you start? I think you start with the people that you're closest to, right? I think we know that matter and feeling that we matter is more than is the most important thing for humans. It doesn't matter how old you are. And one of the things I write in the book is there's a statement I call the three scariest words, which it doesn't matter, right? And I write about that in chapter 5 and in chapter 8 again, that when I heard that with people, it doesn't matter, two things were happening. One, they were feeling it was more like they were saying, I don't matter, right? So when they said, it doesn't really, it doesn't matter anymore, Gene, and the second thing that happened is things usually got worse. Because when you think about this, when we don't really feel like we matter, nothing does. And that's the alternative title of the book of this title for this book is there's nothing wrong with you and you matter. And I think that's important. And the other thing I want to say, Gene, too, is I did not tag these slides. People are asking where to get the book. Just remember, gettingtobetter.com. Gettingtobetter.com. I'll show you at the end where you can do a QR code and learn way more about the book. I want to thank Ben Crudo, ex-CEO from Diff, who personally recreated the Getting to Better website as a favor to me and to Brivia. So gettingtobetter.com. So where do we go from there? And Gene, you're absolutely right. This, folks, for those of you who are struggling at home and struggling at work, this is why I wrote the book. A lot of our struggles are unnecessary. And actually, part two is what I wanted to start the whole book with. But our good friend Tim Pitchell, a research psychologist from Carleton, said it's too depressing, Steve. You can't put this in the beginning of the book. And so section two is like, okay, if we've got this ideal, then why are we suffering so much? Why do we have so much anxiety? Why do we have so much depression and conflict and suicide? And one of the things I say in this chapter in Mission Impossible, I'll talk about all three of these here, is that I believe that we're cross-threaded. And what I mean by that is the theories that I was promoting as an adjunct professor in human behavior wasn't that they were wrong. These books aren't wrong. These models aren't wrong. But I think that what's worse than being totally wrong about something? Being a little bit wrong about everything. And that was my fear, is that some of the things didn't add up. Things weren't totally working. And I call it cross-threaded. So most of you know what cross-threaded is when you have a bolt and a nut, and you're kind of going along, and you feel that little grab. And I describe this in detail very viscerally in the book. And you feel that first snag, and we all know what we need to do, right? You put it in the chat. What should we do? You're going along with that nut on the bolt and you feel that little grab. What should we do? Right? We should probably back up. But what do most of us do, Gene? We go for it, right? And that small imperception cross-threading leads to minor disruptions and nicks to outright destruction. And I think that's where we are. I feel that we're cross-threaded. We're cross-threaded with each other. We're cross-threaded at work. We're cross-threaded with our children, and we're cross-threaded. Get a little bit emotional here because it's not our fault. And if we just back up a quarter turn, and that's what the book is about, is backing up a quarter turn, validating what we're good at, minimizing the unnecessary suffering, right? Because Mission Impossible is this idea that we believe we can't, we won't, we'll never. And these ideas of what we think we're capable of actually become the reason why we don't grow, right? And I think, and that's a big part of Mission Impossible, which leads to the hope. So there's two minor depressing sections in there, but I think they're very validating. And then we come out to what the stuck, which is the case of Kyle, one of the most difficult situations I worked on in my entire life. And I take the reader right through the whole thing, applying the whole algorithm. Why did this get so bad? Because the algorithm pieces were missing. And how could we make it better? And it's a hopeful, and at the end of the chapter, because you may not think you relate to a kid in care, but at the end of the chapter, I lay it out where we can actually relate to so many parts of his story, and we can learn how we can avoid the carnage and how we can get unstuck and thrive. Dean, I'm going to throw it over to you. And there's the gettingtobetter.com on the bottom there. And folks, if you have
Wow.
any specific questions, throw it in the chat.
Yeah,
Yeah,
please do. That's so I love the concept of cross-threaded, Um, uh, I remember again in my training, and I won't always bring it back. But I remember being learning a particular kind of therapy and working with a couple and knowing it wasn't the right frickin' track to be on. I
right,
had to,
right.
because of my supervisor, turn cross thread, bugger up.
Yeah, yeah,
Wow,
yeah,
it's
yeah,
such
yeah,
a fabulous way
yeah, yeah,
to describe it. And
yeah.
I want to just point out something that I shouldn't point out, and
Point it
that
out,
is
sister.
that my beautiful friend still, after all of these hours and years, gets tears up thinking about the work that we still have to do to make kids and others now
Yeah, yeah,
get to better.
yeah. Well, thanks.
Steve, I
Yeah.
just love you. I think you are a very, very special gift to us.
Thank you,
There
Gene,
you
and
go.
you are to me, and so are the people on the line. Like the people that are
Yeah.
here, we care so much. Here's the thing: everybody gets up to succeed. The reason why I'm so sad, Gene, is that cross-threading is unintentional, right? And I think of all the people today that wake up on a performance improvement plan, right? The manager was cross-threaded, the supervisor
Yeah.
was cross-threaded, right? And that little bit of damage goes to absolute destruction. And the wild thing about this is that it's unintentional. Everyone wakes up to succeed: leaders, employees, teachers, students, right? And I think what I want everyone to know, the reason why I get tears, yeah, and most people that work with me closely know that I care a lot, and so do you. That's why I wrote this book, Gene. I wrote this book because you know, we just need, it's not we need a total overhaul. There's just some small areas that we need to back up a quarter turn and then go forward and not only eliminate unnecessary suffering, but have better relationships with our kids, better relationships with our employees, and really step into what we're truly capable of. Because one of the things in this book is we are not even living our close to our potential. Like we're built for 100, we're built for better. We're going 30, right? And I think all human behavior makes sense once we understand it, right? And I think that's what we're
Yeah.
trying to do in this book here, right?
Yeah. Well,
Yeah,
absolutely. I think about, as you were talking, I think about organizational, you talk about organizational and system changes and systems thinking. And at the big picture, if you don't get this, then it's never going to trickle down.
yeah,
If you have an organization that the guy can't change the light bulb because X, Y, and Z, rather than thinking collaborative,
yeah, yeah,
it just takes me in so many different directions, even including, heaven forbid, the healthcare system. But
yeah,
yeah,
yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, no, this
All
this is
right.
one of the things. No, that's it, Gene. It can feel overwhelming, but that's why the book is very empowering and optimistic. Is we are seeing already with hospitals and
Yeah.
mining companies and children's mental health organizations, people are starting to use the three great states. People are starting to implement some of these ideas, and we're seeing small changes having massive impact. And that's why the book, through the first and the second section, have tons of practical strategies, tons of tools, and then we get to the final section, which is, the algorithm, the dip, and what we need to do to kind of back up a bit. And then I give four of my favorite, my most powerful tools. There's lots more. So join the Getting to Better community. If you go to gettingtobetter.com, stay in touch. But page one for leaders, teachers, parents, and coaches to get grounded as an anchor in who they are and what they want, but also to have a compass in terms of how do you want to be each day? How do you want to show up as a leader, parent, teacher, or coach? The $1 billion question for eliminating cross-threading, right? Most people have heard it. What do you know about this from their perspective? The answer is nothing. And this question, see, it went from a question to a full chapter. So it's a full chapter on this beautiful question on what it is, why it's important, how to use it, how to maximize it. And I'll pause there on those two before I get into core communication, the power of belief. Gene, is there anything you want to add? And I'm loving the chat right now, seeing people throw questions and comments
Oh,
into the
great.
chat.
I wish I could multitask and read the chat as well. I want to just comment on this. What do I know about this from their perspective?
Yeah, yeah.
I imagine if every educator, if every physician, if every parent was able to do that pause between action and reaction,
Oh my
Viktor
gosh.
Frankl, yeah. Um, what a difference it would make.
Yeah.
What
Oh
do
yeah.
I understand? What do I know about this from their perspective? Because
Yeah.
as you just said there, absolutely
Yeah.
nothing.
Yeah. Yeah.
I
Yeah.
and thou, wow.
Yeah. 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 Well, we hear all the time, and oh, Dr. Elizabeth Doyle, so good to see you. So many great people on there. Yeah. Has anyone used the $1 billion question? You're absolutely right. The reason why it's a $1 billion question is we see all the time. What we think affects how we feel, determines how we act, right, Gene? Like we say
Yep.
that all the time. So if I think Jeanette is manipulating me, or if I think Darren is lazy, or if I think someone's unwilling, or they're trying to get like that's okay to think that. I mean, for a moment, but then we start to how do we act? How do we feel? Frustrated, overwhelmed, dysregulated, and then what do we use? Our carrots and sticks, right? Versus what do we really know about this from their perspective? And the answer is always nothing, and then we approach them with the core communication, which is in the next chapter. And we've seen around Canada this year the $1 billion question. We've seen some great people from hospitals put it up on walls to stop the gossiping. Before you go to talk to somebody, you have to ask yourself, what do you know about this from their perspective, right? Before you proceed. And just this question alone, that's the quarter turn backwards. That is the quarter turn in the cross threading when you kind of slightly feel something where you can stop the damage, stop the disruption and the destruction in the relationship. And that brings us to core communication, which, a lot of people have been using. And, I see in the chat, people are using the question. Core communication is the most effective and efficient approach to communication. And we've been using this one, and some people wonder why it's so good. It's got an algorithm in it. And, we give the basics for people to get started in chapter 11. And Jean, you read that chapter. Is there anything that stands out in that, core communication? Has the $1 million question, right? What do we know? The $1 billion question, and then the $1 million question, which is, what difference would that make? How would that be helpful? The paraphrasing, all the different tools. Any thoughts on the core communication section, Gene?
Oh my God. Yes, I do have one or two, and read the chapter, and you'll see what they all are. That why is that important to you?
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
There's a stopper. There's
yeah,
a
yeah,
stopper. I'm just
yeah,
acting. I'm just reacting. Why is it
yeah,
important to me? What
yeah,
difference would that make?
yeah,
What?
yeah,
What? You did this with me. You did your
yeah,
1 minute kind of
yeah,
asking me these questions without a situation in mind, and it
yeah,
stopped me in my tracks.
yeah,
I loved
yeah,
it.
yeah.
It's a fabulous book. I love this chapter.
Yeah, awesome. Thanks, Gina. Now we have about 15 minutes left, and some people said they had to jump, but we're getting into the some questions and comments. I love that people are saying they feel hopeful about it. It's optimistic, and again, where do you finish on the book? This is just the first of many things. This is just the beginning to get it out there, folks. The final chapter is the power of belief, and some
Mm,
of you have heard me talk about an equation: belief equals effort equals outcome. And this last chapter is like, this is all great, but our beliefs affect how we behave. And if we don't tune into what we truly believe about ourselves, our children, our employees, our teams, our organizations, we are going to continue struggling, and we're going to stay stuck. And there's some good news. There's some really good news in there about, it's called The Power of Belief and Truths About Humans. But what I like to do in this whole book, Gene, is I like to illuminate slightly different perspectives about what we're capable of, right? And I think what I'm
yeah.
hoping for is that, and I work with some people in the UK, and I have this saying is, once you believe that you're worthwhile, everything changes. Once you believe that your team matters really, truly, and there's a lot of tools in the book to get to that genuine spot, everything changes. Performance, functioning, well-being, individual and collective resilience. Any thoughts on the power of belief section, Gene, before we move into more discussion and ask the audience for some questions about the
Yeah.
book or the algorithm? Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I think that you should have a conversation with Stephen Covey Jr., who wrote
Mm,
The Power of Trust or something about
yeah.
trust.
Yeah.
Because when
Yeah.
you have trust, you go faster. The only thing
Yeah.
is, how does it work? And then you
Yeah.
say, well, I know how it works because there's a chapter in Steve's book that explains it. And the whole thing does.
Yeah.
There are so many books that you have known, but brought your own different perspective. You know,
Yeah.
the old, oh, well, I'll believe it when I see it.
Ah, yes. Yes.
In this way, you're saying, no, 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 I'll see it when
Yeah.
I believe it to be
Yeah.
true. And
Yes.
that is this power of
Yeah.
belief writ
Yeah.
large.
Yeah, yeah, I love it.
Yeah.
Thank you so much. And that's it. It's the see it when I believe it. So in the book, we also talk about three types of folks or three approaches, right? One is the potential junkie, which is a lot of people here. Like we we actually behave like the outcome is already guaranteed, right? So we we keep pushing and pushing and pushing. And then you have the cautious traveler who, they're not sure if I can do it. And then you've
Yeah.
got the people that literally say, I'll believe it when I see it. And in the book, I talk about why all three people are important and why we need the potential junkies in the world to make things happen, to give us what I call concrete evidence of better, right? And I see some great things in the chat, and yeah, exactly. There's so many great things. What I love about this book is it also helps you understand. I got a call from a friend in Toronto who said, I'm starting to understand why I liked certain books. Because in chapter 4 and 3, I talk a lot about how come someone sends you a quote and they're inspired by it, and you look at it, you're like, or how come, when comfort food doesn't, right? When comfort food doesn't comfort, what's wrong with? There's nothing wrong with you, right? So all of these answers are in the book, and I wanted to take a moment to thank some people, Gene, that helped me. Like this was 30 years in the making. And what I want people to know about this wasn't overnight. 15 years of validating from some really, these are some of the people who have helped us. They're juggernauts in their field. Tim Pitchell, friend and colleague, research psychologist, Dr. Kate Stone, physicist, Michael Fullen, I think his 60th book is coming out, Paul Simo, a squadron commander, F-35 pilot. Like these folks over many years have helped me apply this and validate it in their different environments. Dr. Chris Pugh, who's also our in-house priest, right? Dr. Richard Kaiser, good friend and colleague, Brenda Baduk, who actually applied this to her whole hospital. That's how she got in the group. Sunshine Chen created one of the most brilliant minds I know. These people helped us validate this. And of course, yours truly, Dr. Gene Clinton. And so this is more than just a book. This is what I'm hoping for all of you folks is that this is something that will validate and affirm what you're already doing well, because you don't hear that enough. And it's going to challenge what we know about trust. It's going to gently challenge what we think we know about motivation and rethink it so we can redo it. It's going to help us rethink and redo resilience in a way that ladders up to our good friend Michael Unger, multi-systemic, like best researcher in the world on resilience. So it reinforces all the good stuff that we know. And so I want to ask folks any questions, and Gene, you can keep on chatting. I want to know any thoughts because we got about 12 minutes left or so, or 9 minutes. And I also want to see if this is the time to put some more questions in the chat, folks, because I've got an eye on it. Anything about the core algorithm model, anything about the book, and I want to just reiterate, this is just the beginning. If you check out gettingtobetter.com, there's lots of stuff, and we're going to upload tools. Gene, what are your thoughts?
Well, my thoughts and my hopes from the people for the people who are on the webinar and who will listen to it after and who read this book, inhale this book, is that it will shift not only themselves getting to better, but their relationship with their significant people in their lives.
Right.
At the core level, connection, clarity leads to a deep understanding and control, that reflective. Because if we have more of this,
Yeah.
our statistics are going to change dramatically. And I don't want to say our statistics, all the negative stuff. I want to talk about the positive stuff.
Yeah.
How people are going to get up in the morning. They're going to have three things that they're grateful for. One is Stephen de Groot. Second is Stephen de Groot's algorithm. And third is Stephen de Groot's friends. Ha
Gene, sorry. Did my mom call and tell you to say
yeah,
that?
yeah, yeah.
Uh,
Okay. Yeah.
uh,
No,
uh,
my hope is that this is really absorbed. It changes the
yeah,
world. People will see it, and the relationship. It
yeah. And I
really
wanted to,
impacts.
I wanted to reinforce Teresa Carroll. Yes, I'm getting on the audiobook. So folks, I'm going to try to get an audiobook out within a month. So thank you. That's a great question. Other questions, keep them coming. I also want to say, everybody, I didn't say this in chapter 4. I build a lot on Gene's work, and it's my favorite chapter because it's so profound about the impact on our brain and our impact every day. I'm going to be working more with Gene. And if you haven't read her book yet, I wanted to plug it because it's called Love Builds Brains. If you have children or adolescents or young adults in your life, it's an incredible book. So Gene's book, Love Builds Brains. Where do you get that, Gene? That's a Tall Pine Press, right?
Tall Pine
Or
Press
on or your
or
website.
Amazon
Okay.
at your local
Okay.
booksellers.
Yeah. Okay. Yes. Awesome. Thank you. And it's a great book. Also, yes, I'm doing a tour. So if you sign up for the Getting to Better newsletter on the Getting to Better, there's lots of stuff coming. One of my favorite things, everybody, I want you to know is I am going to be doing more community events. I have started doing evening community events with parents and teachers, and I want to do some with Gene. So one of the things we're trying to do with Brivia, of course, that's the company that powers the Getting to Better initiative, is that when we're in a city like Toronto, we're going to do more evening parenting. We did one in Sudbury. We had with Chantel Makala, with the Canadian Mental Health Association, and she's going to her company will come to me right away. Chantel, you can put it in there. Um, and it was a huge event where we had close to 400 parents, teachers, coaches, and leaders, and it was free and it was fantastic. So it's an amazing event. Awesome. Spark, yes. Any other comments or questions, Gene? This has been amazing. We are doing a book tour. Brivia is going to continue to put up blogs like Getting to Better. One's coming out on the 5th. And I just want to say to everybody here, Gene, I'm going to give you last remarks before I finish with my promise, because we're getting close to the top of the hour. Gene, what are your final thoughts and remarks for either just for the people here that took time to show up today?
Yeah, well, I'd have to say that I read a bit. My training has led to me reading some, and there are only a few books that have had the kind of impact on me that this book has had, Steve. Um,
Wow.
Another one is our friends Michael Fullen's Spirit Work. Um, but this is a book of spirit. I think the power in this algorithm is very much like, I think, and I'd like to find out more, is very much like the honoring of the ancestors and our knowledge of Indigenous teachings.
Right.
That
Right.
you are good enough, but that with
Yeah.
the community, you're
Yeah.
better.
Yeah.
I just felt moved
Yeah. Yeah.
to
Thank
share
you,
that,
Gene.
Steve. Something we
Yeah.
haven't talked
Yeah.
about before, but it's really
Yeah.
striking me today.
Yeah, thank you. And that's the light in the book behind the algorithm, because part of this is about emanating from our human spirit. So the approach has worked well with diverse cultures and indigenous cultures and cultures from other countries. So I also wanted to say there was a great question by my friend Sharon. I'm curious how you see the approaches work with people with neurodiversity. As a matter of fact, it's one of the best approaches, Sharon. One of the things is I did a lot of work with kids who had alcohol affected issues, kids on the spectrum, autism, you name it. A big part of my career was working with kids that were different. And the worst thing we can do is apply cookie cutter models to kids that don't fit. And one of the things about the three great states and the core four, and also the key connectors, is it creates conditions where regardless of your differences, regardless of your specialties, regardless of your abilities, it creates the space for you to demonstrate what you need, what you value, what you want, and what you're good at. So what a great question. One of the reasons why I worked so hard at building this was because I worked with children who were being harmed in the systems that they were in, residential group care, specialized systems. And I'm not saying that those systems aren't good, because there's great people doing great things. But in order to accommodate neurodiversity or any type of diversity, we have to create the three great states. We have to tune into the individual and collective needs, values, goals, and strengths. We have to regulate, we have to resource, and we have to relate. And when we do that, we provide connection, we provide a strong sense of clarity, and we provide a sense of personal agency, no matter how old they are. And what that does is it allows them to maximize their true potential. And it gives us what I call in the book the signature of resilience, which
Yeah.
is a very strong sense of confidence, capability, and calm in the good moments and in the not so good ones. Great question, Sharon. Thank you so much. I hope that was helpful,
Mm,
folks. I know it's at the top of the hour, and I just wanted to say here's my promise again, folks. Thank you for being here. I can't tell you how touched I am. 30 years in the making, 5 years in the writing. One chapter took me 2.5 years to write. That was chapter three. It almost broke me, so I hope you enjoy it. Gene, I wanted to say I love you so much. You have been a source of regulation for me for many years after my brother died, and the algorithm helped me, and that's on the video on the Getting to Better site. After he passed away, I was my last case. I needed to use the algorithm to help me get to better. But I want to say thank you, Gene. Thank you, everybody, for taking time to show up today. I want to thank everybody for working as parents, teachers, coaches, and leaders to get the people that you want to get to better. I want you to have this book. I want you to have a better life. My promise to you is that this book will help you get to better and help you get beyond what you think better might be. So I want to say thank you very much. And thank you to Brenda Baduk for helping us set this up. Great partner at Brivia, John Hossack. I want to say thank you to Melissa Wilson, publisher from Networlding. And I wanted to say again, thank you everyone here for showing up. Love to all of you. Wish you the best. Jean, thank you so much. And everybody have a better than expected day. And we will see you at the Getting to Better site. Have a good day, everybody.